There are two ways to incorporate rubrics into your grading in Canvas. There's the Canvas rubric tool, which is the focus of this video, and there's the Turnitin rubric tool. The Canvas rubric tool may be attached to assignments, discussions, and quizzes. In Canvas, add a new assignment either in Assignments or directly in a module. Name the assignment and then click Save. And click the assignment link to get to the place where the Add Rubric button is. Note that if you click the Edit button instead of the Add Rubric button, you will not see the option to add a rubric. Once you click the plus rubric button, you can either give a new rubric a title, or you can click to find a rubric that you created previously. I'll go ahead and create a new rubric and start out by giving it a title. Initially, you'll see that there is one criterion, and you can edit the description by clicking on the pencil icon, as well as you can edit the ratings options. You can also add additional ratings by clicking the plus sign in between the different ratings. In order to change the number or the descriptor for the rating scales, you click on the pencil and you can change that number and click Update Rating. You may also, as I mentioned, click the plus sign to add different ranges of scores. So notice I now have 3, 2, and I want to add a 1 to my scale, and I'll give that one a title. And notice under Rating Description, I can also add further description as to what would allow a student to achieve that mark. And so now you can see that the student can obtain a 3, 2, 1, or a 0 on this particular criterion. So now I'll go ahead and edit the actual description of the criterion. So I can replace that placeholder with a title of Introduction. And I can also add further description, as well as I can select a range for that criterion. So I can have ranges of points, or I can just have discrete numbers. Next, I'll start adding in new criteria. So I'll click the plus criterion button, and I can actually copy a previously created criterion and base the next one on that one. I don't have to recreate all of those areas. So if I click and choose duplicate, I can take the introduction one and name it body paragraphs. And I can also add a longer description and click update criterion. And there I have those same marks. I could certainly build it out differently, but that's a nice option to duplicate the previous one. So I can then add yet another criterion and duplicate the introduction one again, give it the new title of conclusion, add a long description if I'd like. Now notice that the points are accruing based on the scaled points, and let's say I want to add one more criterion that has a different set of marks. I can do that. And also change the scale to just 1 or 0. So that's the basic setup of a rubric in the Canvas assignment area. Note that I didn't add descriptions that I would probably add to each of the different scales so the students would know exactly where they stand. Students can actually see the rubric before they begin an assignment, so it can be really helpful for them to see exactly what you're expecting before they start writing an essay or any other type of Canvas assignment, discussion, or quiz. Once the body of your rubric is done, you can finalize the last settings, and you can decide whether you wish to remove points from the rubric and just use it strictly qualitatively. You can decide whether you want outcomes connected to it, and that's a whole different workshop on Canvas outcomes. But the most important thing is to use this rubric for assignment grading if in fact you want the scores from the rubric to feed into the gradebook. So that's a critical one to select. And lastly, you want to be sure to click Create Rubric. This will finalize your rubric to be sure that it's saved for either editing or use with grading the assignment. As with anything web-based, it wouldn't hurt for you to click Create Rubric and then proceed to edit it, as that's the only way to save it while you're working on it. So you don't want to risk losing your content. So you may wish to click Create Rubric early on and then click to edit it after that. If you previously attributed points to the assignment that don't match the total points of the rubric, you may get this message asking asking whether you want to change the total possible points or leave it different. So generally speaking, the rubric should match the total points possible, and therefore I recommend clicking change so that they match and there's no discrepancy. Now let's take a look at grading using a rubric. From the assignment page, click on SpeedGrader. The next window will show the student submission. You'll click on the View Rubric button, and note that you can click to drag and open that rubric to a wider view, and then you can start clicking on the different scales and write comments for each criterion if you would like. And so as you click to choose the scale, it'll fill in the number in the points column, and you can choose to write comments or not. And note that as I go through, I can again click to add any additional comments. And notice it totals the points, and once you click save, that rubric is saved and the score goes into the grade book. Now let's look quickly at how the student receives the rubric feedback. On the student's grades page, they can see their submission and click directly onto the rubric icon. We'll expand the rubric and look much like how you created it, with the selected scales for each criterion, as well as any comments you made. And they can close that view and click directly onto the link to the paper. And then from this view, they may click on View Feedback. And this is where if you're putting comments directly on the paper, they could see it here, as well as pull up the rubric again.